And now I will open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science.
Michael from California.
Okay, Michael from California, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for those excellent readings. Really, really great. I just wanted to express my gratitude for just one of the major things I've learned here at Plainfield, the idea and the discipline of watching and what that means. Having been raised in the mainstream organization, I'd never been taught anything about this, even though it's admitted that this was done by Mrs. Eddy and her staff, and this was a critical part of the daily activities. The actual doing of it was never taught, and that's one of the first major things I learned here at Plainfield. And to the extent that I do it and I'm faithful and doing it throughout the day, I've learned that my day goes much better. It clears away a lot of the material resistance and issues that I'm certain would have been issues had I not been doing the watching. About a week ago, I was coming home from work, and I take advantage of the commute home using public transportation to do watches and to study, and I had been doing that. And I'd also been using the 91st Psalm and the 23rd Psalm, which a Plainfield practitioner had recommended I use. And once I got home, I live on the second floor of this apartment building. I was entering, and I heard some noise in the building next to me. Somebody was on the rooftop, and as I went up to the hallway, a window was being opened, and somebody was trying to enter my building. I wasn't scared, but I approached the person, and I confronted them, and they froze. And I just said, "What are you doing?" And the person gave some excuse about looking for somebody, and I made some comment about how he needs to use the door like everybody else. And then the thought just came to me. I just pulled out my phone, and I said, "I'm going to take your picture." And then he took off into the dark, and I didn't see him. And then I called the police. And the entire time this all happened, I just realized how calm I was. I wasn't scared. There wasn't the usual human adrenaline stuff going on. And I was able to just compose myself. The police got there. They searched the area. They didn't find anybody, but I notified my neighbors, and everybody was alert to what had just happened. But if I had been there too early, I would not have seen this happen. And if I'd been there too late, this person probably would have already been in the building. And to walk in just as this was happening and to be able to respond so calmly, I credit obviously God with giving me the right state of mind to deal with this, but also the watches to be alert and to literally keep a possible thief from entering my building. And just wanted to express my gratitude for that and to everything that the Plainfield Church is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Dede from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Today's calendar quote reads, "Whatever its seeming nature, error is nothing." I find this message to be right on time for the season. With so many distractions in the news, media, workplace, etc., such as an increase in crime, sickness, and depression, to take my thought off of the good that God is doing. I'm thankful to have this truth to work with while doing watches and as I go about my day. And I'm grateful for the good work that's going on in this church that helps me to remember the importance of remaining prayerful, continuing to work for the world at a time when it's so easy to be caught up in self. I'm so thankful for tonight's readings and for this entire meeting. I'm very grateful to be a part.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. We are taught here when we're struggling with something that it's important to search out the underlying cause and to handle it from where it began in our thoughts. I'm grateful to God for being there when I'm struggling to understand just how I got myself in trouble. There are many times at night that I lay in bed and talk with God about my day. He answers my inquirings in some unexpected ways. The other day I was really struggling with anger because one of my portrait drawings was refused by the client. I tried so hard to handle my thoughts, but somehow anger just grabbed a hold of me, and before I knew it, I was complaining to anyone that would listen. Later on, I was laying in bed trying to justify myself, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't. In humility, I reached out to God for help. At the time, I had various YouTube videos playing on my phone. I wasn't really listening to them until I heard a man say, "God loves you. No matter what you've done, your Father loves you." I felt so bad for the way I behaved. I did not reflect good in any way. I didn't glorify God. In tears, I asked God to help me understand. The man said, "When you declare Christ as your Savior, people are watching you to see how you handle stress. Depending on how you deal with stress, you will either bring others to God or turn them away from Him." I started thinking about Joshua's battle and how he inquired of the Lord as to the loss of the first battle against Ai. I got up and began to read my Bible. God said to him, "Get thee up. Wherefore liest thou thus upon thy face?" Joshua 7:10. Then God said, "O Israel, thou canst not stand before thine enemies until ye take away the accursed thing from among you." Joshua 7:13. It became so clear to me that it was pride that had pulled me out of His grace. My enemy was my own thoughts that this was a difficult client and that I alone was good enough to create a perfect portrait drawing of her that she will love. I worked for 6 months on the drawing, but the truth is, it was not good enough because I had not given any of it to God. I had not handled my personal sense of her, nor had I put an end to the pride I had entertained. No wonder she refused to accept it. I had clearly made a mess of the whole situation. The loss of the payment for the work was justified, and I'm so grateful to God for this lesson I learned. I'm so grateful to Christian Science, because without it, I would not have thought twice about my behavior and how it affects others, or even desired to seek understanding so that I can change. I'm deeply grateful to this church for all that I've been given. I have so much to learn, but I know that God is right here with me, lighting the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen.
Colleen from Massachusetts, go ahead.
Good evening. I've had many struggles this week, some physical issues, some relationship issues, some health problems with family members, and it seems like it's just come all at once. And I was getting a little depressed about it, and I just turned to God, and I said, "God, I know there's a blessing in this. I just know, and I'm going to work for it." And I started to turn my thought to God, and I started to realize that my being is not a physical one, and either is any of my family members, that it's animal magnetism that's presenting these false pictures to me, and I'm not going to accept them. So things have gotten much better, and I've changed my thinking because I know that I am joy and health and happiness, and so are my family members, and so it's everyone within my thinking. And I have the authority from God to think rightly. And I'm learning this here at this church, and I'm so
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful tonight for all I'm learning in this church. Before coming to Plainfield and before learning about Christian Science, I always felt that every day we are presented with 1,000 choices. And over time, I just found myself overwhelmed by all of them. I knew I wasn't smart enough to see every possible outcome or know how any choice might ultimately help or hurt myself and those around me. So I became afraid to make any big choices. Once I came here and began learning about science, I had this wonderful feeling of relief that I could now leave all of that to God. I no longer felt that immense pressure. What an amazing difference that was. Recently, however, something occurred to me. It isn't that there are 1,000 choices per day, each with their own imagined ripples and consequences. The truth is that each moment there's only one choice, the choice to listen to God and do what He is directing me to do. Since all of creation is God's, there's no possibility of failure unless I choose not to listen to Him. I'm very grateful for how this little nuance of understanding has really helped simplify my day. I no longer need to imagine some vague cloud of possibilities. Instead, I know exactly what I am going to do each day. I'm going to listen to God. Christian Science, as I am learning here in Plainfield, constantly changes me for the better. I'm very grateful to be a member here. Thank you.
Thank you. Lil.
That music was just so beautiful, and the readings were equally beautiful. Thank you. I had a wonderful quick working out with my car today. When I got in my car this morning, there were 2 warning lights on my dashboard. One was about a tire, and I knew nothing about the other one. When I could, I went to my dealer as I leased the car at the beginning of the year. I was told the wait time would be about 3/4 of an hour. It seemed right to get practitioner help and was told to trust God. In about 15 minutes, I was told all is well, and the second light was just another warning indicator. Then, before I got off the lot for the dealer, I noticed that I hadn't gotten my keys back. So I returned to the shop area. Apparently, they leave the keys on the console. However, mine fell between the seat and the console, and I hadn't seen them anyway. I had different people helping me, and at different stages of this adventure, hardly was I was on my way home in a very short time. I thanked practitioner for the help, and I kept thanking God for watching over every part of our lives, every single moment. I'm just so grateful to be a part of this wonderful healing church. Thank you.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland. Go ahead.
Thank you. I, too, am so very, very grateful to have found the Plainfield Church on the internet thanks to their wonderful website. I was really lost when I found Plainfield. And I'm very grateful for the fact that not only have I learned a great deal about how to live with God, but there's the continuous learning that I continue to learn and progress with all the teaching that goes on here in the Bible studies and the round tables, led by my wonderful practitioner there at Plainfield. The other day I had a sudden pain, quite severe, on the inside of my thigh when I moved a certain way and seemed to have pulled something, but I didn't know what it was. But it was very painful, and it persisted. My first thought was just to turn to God. And I said, Father, please help me. Father, please help me. And I had faith that He would. And so, but it continued. For 3 days, whenever I would move in a certain direction, I would have this terrible pain. But then on the fourth morning, when I arose, I realized it was completely gone. I was so grateful to God, and for all that I've learned here at this church in how to live with and work with God. And I want to express my deep gratitude for the chance to be here tonight, to hear all the testimonies, the beautiful music, and the readings on the beauty of holiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chardell.
I also want to say how grateful I am to be here. The music, so comforting. The readings, so healing. And all the testimonies are also very healing. I wish to offer my sincere gratitude for all that I am learning here at our Christian Science Church Independent, whose hub is in Plainfield, New Jersey, and sends forth to all the world. The other day, as I was speaking with a practitioner from this church, this is what I took from our conversation. I mentioned how wonderful it is to be approaching these holy days with a new attitude, even when the material world looks troublesome. Then came the gentle reminder that as our consciousness changes, the so-called material world looks different. This is what enabled Mary, as part of the remnant, to bring the Christ idea to the world for all to behold and be healed of the belief in matter. After this conversation, I sat quietly for a little while and recalled what Mary Baker Eddy said in Science and Health. Spiritual reality is the scientific fact in all things. The spiritual fact repeated in the action of man, and the whole universe is harmonious and is the ideal of truth. End quote. Page 207. Yes, all the Spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for this service tonight. I'd like to express my gratitude for our daily calendar statement emails that have links to articles and audios. I look forward to it each day. While out doing a couple of errands this week, I found it so convenient to click on the audio, which at this time had a testimony called Let's Stay Inspired. This was followed by several other testimonies. I could feel my spirits and thoughts lifted. It was such a blessing, since in the past, being around holiday shoppers brought much dread. With the tools that are being taught here, I'm learning to let God lead, pray all through the activity, and watch my thoughts. And I'm also sure that it is much more pleasant for the other shoppers too. I was able to move through very quickly, effortlessly, and kindly, and for that I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I was reading in the lesson for this week, and there's a passage from Isaiah that says, "Thus saith the Lord, which maketh a way in the sea, and a path in the mighty waters. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." And when I read that, it reminded me of an experience that I had just a few weeks ago. We had our grandchildren over at our house, and our granddaughter was sitting on the sofa next to me, and we got a little bit of news that indicated that something that we were expecting to happen might not happen. And she was getting very disappointed, very sad about it. So I looked at her and I says, "Don't you think God will make a way?" her eyes lit up. She looked up at me and says, "Yes, God will make a way." And she was just a happy little girl like she always is, going forward from then. And the thing that we were expecting to happen really did happen. But I was reflecting back on that experience about how natural it was for this child to recognize that, yeah, God was going to take care of us. It made me ask myself, why can't I have that trust that's that simple and that sincere when I face my challenges that seem to come up usually every day? So it was a very helpful example for me to simply trust God, because He indeed will open up a way for whatever it is that His purpose is. So I'm thankful for this wonderful lesson and this basic, wonderful truth that's in our lesson this week. Carol.
I remembered the other day something that I overheard a practitioner say many years ago, speaking with someone, with a patient, and said, "You're not alive because your heart is beating. Your heart is beating because you are alive." I loved that. I thought that just took all the seeming power away from matter and put it in God. Life is, and life continues. And I just thought that was so helpful. I think of it every so often that it's not life does not rely on material outward appearances. Life relies on God. Life is God. I'm just so grateful for that statement, and very grateful to be here tonight and all the readings and the music, and thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
Recently, I was feeling very discouraged and negative thoughts were coming. And as they were coming, I was kicking them out, as we're taught in this church. And after a while, they stopped coming. And I said, God, what else do I need to know? And I was directed to go to Lessons of the Seventh Day by Mary Baker Eddy. And this statement stood out to me. There is no failure where God is, and He is with you every minute. I was so grateful for this reminder from God that He is all and anything else is a lie. I am so grateful for practitioner help, this church, the testimonies and the readings and the music. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the readings tonight. They were beautiful. And I'd like to give thanks to God for teaching through Mrs. Eddy what we are. I love where she says in Science and Health, page 492, she says that being is holiness, harmony, and immortality. This has helped me a great deal because it really tells me what God is knowing about me. And reading Lessons of the Seventh Day, I also came across something that Mrs. Eddy says, that mind, God, knows only the good, true, beautiful, and pure. I'm so grateful for these because to think or to make these prominent in my thinking helps me to know that I'm the reflection of life, immortality, holiness, the purity and innocence of God's child, and know that for myself and for the whole of mankind. She also has told us how to cast out the wrong thoughts that come in thinking about what we really are. She says on page 392 of Science and Health that casting out evil and fear enables truth to outweigh error. The only course is to take antagonistic grounds against all that is opposed to the health, holiness, and harmony of man, God's image. I am so grateful for these short but very powerful statements that Mrs. Eddy has given us. It helps in all situations. I'm so grateful for the music, the testimonies, and very happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Okay, I have a few things to read tonight. The first from Vermont. Dear friends, it is with boundless gratitude that I write to you today. The ability to attend as well as participate from across the miles in the Bible studies, watches, roundtables, Sunday services, Wednesday evening meetings, and website offerings of this vibrant church is truly something to ponder, and it is meeting the needs of those who wish to attend a church promoting Mary Baker Eddy's pure Christian Science, as well as hungry hearts around the world simply seeking the truth. It is truly wonderful and uplifting that the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent not only exists, but is truly thriving in Plainfield as well as virtually. Please find enclosed our heartfelt contribution to help support this immensely important work and outreach. And then a testimony from Wisconsin. I would like to share with you the wonderful power of gratitude to God. My husband and I have lived in our house with a long, steep driveway for over 40 years. The other morning when we arose, there were over 2 inches of snow on the ground. That afternoon, our grandchildren were coming over to decorate Christmas cookies. In order to navigate the driveway easily, they needed to have a path cleared to the house. While shoveling, I stopped every few minutes and gave thanks to God for keeping me safe and granting me the strength to accomplish this task. It was a beautiful sunny day. Therefore, after completing the path, I decided to carry on and shovel the whole driveway. During this time, I continued to acknowledge God's great love and His blessings every few minutes. If I went too long between thank yous, the birds that were enjoying the day made a ruckus to remind me about gratitude. After an hour and a half, the entire driveway was finished. Never were there any side effects from the shoveling, and that afternoon we had a great time decorating cookies. Thank you to Mrs. Eddy for giving us Christian Science, a very practical way to live your life. I would also like to thank those of you at Plainfield Independent Christian Science Church for keeping the pure Christian Science available to all, and for my practitioner for her loving patience and help. Thanks to all. And then a testimony from Finland, our first friend from Finland. I was looking for a new place to live in a new city, and I sent an inquiry about one house that looked nice. I was talking to the person who was living there currently and asked her all the many questions about the house. She told me basically that the house is perfect. It has all the things that I had ever wanted in a house, and the location is excellent. There was only one downside, and it was a neighbor couple next door who sometimes argues and fights and keeps loud parties. I was thinking about this and then felt anxious about moving in here because peace is very important to me and I want to feel God all the time in peace. I definitely did not want to move in somewhere where I would not feel harmony and ease of living. So I kept thinking about it, and I felt like God would not want me to move into a place where there is disharmony. I used what I had learned from Christian Science, and I declared the best I could that the neighbor is peaceful and a loving person, God's image and likeness, who could not have any disharmony in him and does not want to fight with anyone, but is most loving and kind. I left it at that and wanted to trust God that if this would be my house, He would lead me to it. So I went to see this house, and when I came to see it, the person who used to live here told me the girl who the neighbor boy had been fighting with all the time had just moved away. I knew instantly something was up. God was at work. Then I moved in here, and I've been living here for a couple days, and it has been very peaceful. And today, to my absolute surprise, while I was doing some work on my computer, I heard for the first time something from the other side of the wall. I could not believe my ears. It was a beautiful woman singing in the most angelic voice. I was listening to this singing in amazement. I felt so loved by God. He really knows all our needs and what makes us happy and comfortable. The rest of my days here have been very peaceful, and I have not heard anything from my neighbors. It has been so wonderful to live in a house governed by God's love. Eternally grateful. Helsinki, Finland. And then one thing from our church website bulletin board. Pennsylvania. I'm so grateful for our roundtable classes each week. On December 10th, talking about God as our preserver, it was suggested to cry Abba, Father, whenever confronted by sudden fear or disquiet. Also, let us be found in our work. Our whole duty is for God's glory. It is then we are blessed and held in his bosom, preserving us always, as we continue with deep consecrated prayer for all the world. Too, I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you for those beautiful readings on holiness as we continue our holy days and keeping them holy. I loved what you read from Miscellaneous Writings. I thought it was good instruction, good counsel from Mrs. Eddy. She says to honor thy father and mother God, continue in his love, watch diligently, never desert the post of spiritual observation and self-examination. Strive for self-abnegation, justice, meekness, mercy, purity, love. Let your light reflect light. Have no ambition, affection, nor aim apart from holiness. Forget not for a moment that God is all in all. Therefore, that in reality there is but one cause and effect. Pray without ceasing. I thought, wow, what a great list. So I have that circled to think about during the day, to remind myself to keep my days holy and to keep in the love of God. I'm so grateful for this independent church. I'm so grateful for all that I learn here, really every day, for our wonderful website, for all of our in-town and out-of-town members, the beautiful music we hear each service. It's just a joy to be here, and I thank you all.
Thank you.